Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel for another Procreate tutorial. If you are new here, my name is Laura. I am an illustrator and a digital content creator, and you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and Pinterest by the name of Laura Jane Illustrations, as well as here on YouTube where I create tutorials and videos to show you how I create my content and a little bit behind the scenes of how I illustrate and run my freelance business. If you like content like that, you can go ahead and click that subscribe button and turn on that little notification bell to get reminders when new videos go up. If you're an illustrator, if you're a digital illustrator, if you're a Procreate beginner, this tutorial is for you. Because one of the things that I get asked a lot about is how to get started lettering in Procreate. So today I'm going to share with you all of the tips and tricks that I learned when I started digital illustration, specifically digital lettering, and specifically using Procreate. So let's dive straight in. So the first step in Procreate is always setting up or selecting the correct canvas. Today I'm going to set up a new canvas in the new vertical 4:5 ratio format for Instagram, as Instagram recently updated their feed and are testing an immersive feed, and so that original 1:1 ratio just doesn't really work best. The recommended dimensions for this are 1080 by 1350 pixels, but I like to up that amount a bit more, and I go for 4096 by 5120 with 300 dots per inch. The next thing that we're going to do is go into our canvas settings and turn on our drawing guides. This is going to help us a lot when we are lettering to keep everything straight and aligned and even in height and length. If you tap on Edit Drawing Guides, you can also adjust the size of these squares on your grid, and you can also change the color of the grid depending on the background of your canvas. But I'm going to leave it as it is for today and work with these squares as they are. Because I want to letter this post for Instagram, I'm going to do one more thing to set up my canvas, which is adding in some square post and then creating a clipping mask on top of it. This is going to create a shadow square in the center of our 4:5 canvas to allow us to understand which parts of our lettering and our illustration are going to be visible on our profile when we share this on Instagram. So here comes my top tip or hack if you are new to digital lettering in Procreate, and that is adding a text layer to your canvas and typing out exactly what you want to letter. It's going to give us a base to work on. If you're new to digital lettering, one of the most challenging parts about it can be getting used to the friction of the Apple Pencil on the iPad screen or whatever program you're using. If you're not using Procreate, this also works in other programs. Adding that text layer underneath allows us to make sure that all of the letters stay in even size, and we can just focus on developing that skill of digital lettering and getting used to this new format of creating. Once I am happy with my text layer, I'm going to go ahead and reduce the opacity. This is going to make it easier for me to see my lettering line work on top of that base text guide. I'm then going to set my lettering brush to black, and today I'm going to use a monoline brush to get me started. Some things to consider in the brush studio in Procreate when you're starting out with digital lettering is the streamlining, the pressure, and the stabilization tools. By adjusting these, you can get a smoother line, even if you're still a little bit jittery using the Apple Pencil. This really helps to get straight, smooth lines and can make the lettering process a lot less frustrating. So play around with these settings and see what works for you, where you're at, and your style of hand movement and handwriting. Then on a new layer above my base text layer, I'm going to go ahead and start lettering up my quote. I'm using the base text layer here as a guide, but as you see, as I letter, I'm really doing my best to bring in my own handwriting and my own style. The more you practice this, the easier that this will become. If you're starting out, don't be afraid to just stick to tracing on top of that base text layer underneath, because remember that even if you're doing that, you're building up that skill of digital hand lettering and getting used to the pressure, the stabilization, and the lack of friction of a plastic digital pen on a plastic or glass screen, which is very different to lettering with a pencil, pen, or brush on paper. Once I've traced over all of the text, I'm going to go ahead and turn off that base layer as well as that shadow layer and my grid lines so I can really see what my lettering looks like. At this point, I usually go ahead and change the background and add in some illustrations before exporting it as a JPEG file ready to share on Instagram. So that was a very simple style of lettering, but it shows the basic techniques of how to get started and some good skills to know. Starting simple is always best with something new, not overcomplicating it and getting yourself frustrated. But if you'd like something a little bit more challenging, I'm going to show you how to do some blocky, chunky lettering in this next one. So I'm starting out exactly the same. I've got my grid lines on, I've got that shadow in the background, and I'm using a base text layer to type out all of the text that I want to write. Also, another top tip, using the text layer means that spell check is built in, and that is so helpful for me because so often when I'm focused on the actual process of lettering, I make typos and spelling mistakes in the finished quote that I don't see until someone on social media points it out to me. Again, once I'm happy with that base text layer, I'm going to go ahead, center it to my canvas. I'm actually changing the background first here because I want to really work with color as I go. And I'm choosing a contrasting strong red to go on this light pink background. I'm still using a monoline brush here, but to get that chunky effect, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn up the size of that monoline brush. And I'm really paying attention to my base layer here to keep the size of my letters consistent. But I'm also going to go a little bit beyond the base layer elements because I want to have a bit of lettering to chop off at the end to get that chunky blocky text layer. As you can see at this point, it's pretty round and soft, which is also nice. It's like a bubbly lettering. But to get that blocky effect, what we're going to do is once we have lettered out everything, we're going to go back in with our eraser tool and just chop off the ends of all of the letters to get a really nice blocky look. So to finish this lettering piece off, I'm going to show you a really simple way to add a drop shadow to your text. We're going to go into our layers and duplicate that layer that we just lettered. We're also going to go ahead and turn off those guides because we don't need them anymore. Then for the layer that is on the bottom, our text layer underneath, we're going to change the color settings to linear burn. This is just a good blend mode to have for a shadow because it creates a more natural color blend. We're then going to use the cursor tool to slightly offset that underlying layer from our original text so it starts to look a little bit like a drop shadow. I've actually decided to change the color of my drop shadow by adding a clipping mask, picking the color of the background and adding a slightly darker version of this. Now for the magic, using our Gaussian blur, we're going to blur out that shadow layer a little bit to soften it. And then we're also going to go ahead and reduce the opacity of that layer so that that shadow isn't so harsh. And then all that's left to do is make sure all of our guide layers are turned off, including our canvas guides, so we can get a good look at what our lettering is going to look like, and then just choose what file format we'd like to export it in, ready to print or to post on social media. I really hope that you found this tutorial helpful and it gave you some tips and tricks to help you get started, or even just some inspiration to get over the hurdle of that blank digital canvas and just try creating. It's really important to remember that it doesn't have to be perfect. Give it a try, have some fun with it, and don't be afraid of that process of learning that new skill. If you did enjoy this tutorial, go ahead and click that thumbs up button and show me some love. And if you want to see more content like this, you can click on subscribe to join the family here. If you have any questions or there's anything that I didn't cover in this tutorial that you'd like to know more about, you can go ahead and leave me a comment down below, and I'm always happy to answer questions and chat with you guys about your content creation, your digital illustration, and just anything that you want to know about Procreate, because I love the app. That's all for me today, and I'll see you again really soon.